The Sawyer Hannay Show.
Very excited to have a friend of mine. I might get his name wrong because it is very French, but I'm going to try my best. Thierry Comtois. He is a co-founder of Quest Capital. So what Quest Capital does, we're going to get into that in today's podcast, but just high level. They build apartment buildings in cities, mainly in Dieppe, Greater Moncton area. I think they're getting into Nova Scotia as well, but they're building these huge complexes, like, I don't know, 50 to 100 units per apartment building, multiple apartment buildings. He's like a young guy. He's like roughly my age. I think we played hockey against each other. Really impressive portfolio, really interested in diving in. He might be kind of my only friend that is into this line of work. So really interesting for me personally to dive into this. And I look forward to sharing it all with you. Awesome. So welcome, Thierry, my boy. How's it going?
Thanks. I'm good. Yourself?
Good, man. Good. Really excited to have you on. I recorded a little intro before I started talking to you, and I kind of gave the folks, I guess, a little bit of a background about your business and kind of who you are. And as I was doing the intro, I kind of stumped myself. I was like, I think I played hockey against them because we played against each other university level, right?
Yep.
Do we play junior?
Yeah, when I was in Val-d'Or, we would have played together for sure.
Right, that's right, Val-d'Or, beautiful city, warmest city in the country.
Yeah, no, I had a good experience there. We made lots of good friends there, and it's certainly a unique place, far away from the bigger center, but it was great.
Yeah, no, I'm sure those. Like I played in Halifax for so long, right? So I only played like, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 games a year in Val-d'Or. Like we never played them in the playoffs or anything. So I only went there a few times, but my memories are like a bunch of people on skidoos, literally going to the rink on skidoos, like things like that, like way more snow than we ever had in the Maritimes. Yeah,
well, there's not a lot of activities over there, right? So there's lots of outdoor, but of course, the hockey games are certainly at the center of attraction of the city there. So
yeah,
it's kind of cool for people to gather and on Saturday nights and Friday nights and be at the rink.
Yeah, give them something to do.
Yep.
So who would have been like? Did you play with Amantha or who? Because he's a buddy of yours, right?
Yeah, Anthony is a good friend of mine. Like we became really good friends over there. Actually, probably one of my best friends when I was there, and we always kept contact. And I was actually at his wedding this summer in Banff there, which was
nice,
quite nice. So yeah,
cool. Yeah, he scored like, I don't know, 60 goals or 65 goals one season, didn't he, junior?
Yeah, he was really, really good. Actually, he was. He was that kind of guy that was really natural, and
we
had a lot of fun around that. But yeah, he was just like one of the guy that I played with that was always on top of his game when it actually counted there in the big moments. So no, he's definitely a great person, great guy, and great player.
Yeah. I remember playing against him briefly. I think he might be a year younger than me or something, and I'm not shocked at all that he's carved out an NHL career. I mean, he had the frame for it in junior, and he had the scoring touch. Yeah. Like that one made absolute sense that he would make that level, right?
Still has it. So it's good for him, but he's having a great career there. So he's doing good.
Yeah, cool. So did you play there? When did you start? At 17 or 16?
Played there 17, 18, 19. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been there for 3 years. Stayed at the same bullet for the 3 years, which was awesome. Really close to the rink. Awesome people there. For me, it was almost a second family. We stayed very close afterwards too, and
good.
It was a good experience for me actually. When I was younger, I was always dreaming of playing in the queue, probably like you and everybody that ends up playing there. So for me, anywhere would have been nice, but Val-d'Or kind of became a second home for me when I was there. So,
and growing up, like, did you feel that was a possibility when you were playing minor hockey and stuff? Like, did you feel like playing in the queue was a possibility for you?
Well, Not at an early age, I guess. Like, there's a funny story behind that, but I always begged my parents to play hockey, and I was into soccer in the summer and other sports, and
Yep.
we're three kids at home, so my parents would think like, you know what, like, we want to stay home and during the winter, and cold rinks weren't their preferred place to be, I guess. But
Yep.
I was keeping begging them. So at some point, at 8 years old, they said, you know what, like, okay, like we'll just get you in, and you're so old that you'll probably play for fun for a couple of years, and then that'll be it. And I remember I was way worse than everybody, right? Because usually people start at 4, 5,
Yep.
6, way earlier. Um, uh, but yeah, like I just, I really loved it, and I just kept playing at it, and I got better and better, and I really liked it. So I was practicing a lot, playing a lot. I was in different programs at school there, so I was on the ice twice a day, during high school, which
Yep.
really for me was, the accelerator. In my career. So yeah, that's kind of where and how it all started. And from there, when I played midget, then it became more like, okay, like
Right.
I'm getting better. Maybe there's a chance,
Hmm.
but I never really. I always dreamed about it, but never really focused on that. Rather than just like focusing on practicing every day and getting a bit better every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I know like here in my town, there was in the community over, so Elsa Buck took, there was two guys that played in the queue maybe 15 years before I did. Um, like a long time, 15, 20 years, I don't know. So for me growing up, I never dreamed of that. We'd go to a Wildcats game once a year. It would be like a big outing, or my dad or our parents would take us and it'd be like this fun thing. But the queue, like the Wildcats seemed like the NHL to us. Like it
Yeah.
seemed like it was just like, I don't know, just an unreachable dream. And then it was until midget when I started talking to scouts. And even then I didn't really think it was possible until my second year midget. We had a really good team, and I had a good season, and I knew I would get drafted. But even at that, like I remember going to my first camp, I tried out for Halifax. They were like the worst team in the league, I think the year before. And I was like, almost got cut, like right on that cusp. And, it was all like really surreal because growing up, it was never really mentioned that that was possible for me and
No,
for us, you know?
No, exactly. So I think it makes it even better, right, for you. And like for me, I can remember, I think that was my first year midget. I never really thought about it until, one morning we get in, and there's that list that they kind of, pull out every year, and my
Yep.
name was on it. And people were telling me like, hey, you're on that list. And that's really how it started for me. I was like, oh, well, I don't even know what that list is, right? And
Yeah.
and then I was on the draft list for the queue, and then I started being really interested, like, oh, well, what can I do from there, right? So anyways, yeah, I'm sure I know how you felt there, coming from a smaller city, and
Yeah.
dreaming about it, but not necessarily thinking that you'll be there, and suddenly you're there, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So you clearly you're always a driven guy, and I've only met you kind of outside of hockey, and I think we've had a handful of conversations and hung out maybe a time or two, and you know I was really impressed with, I guess, your precision and your just your focus on what you're doing. I'm sure in your hockey days you had that same level of focus, but draw me a map between like going from playing in the queue hockey, going to university, and now like running a real estate business. Like, how does that happen? That whole transition.
Yeah, well, I always liked, being involved in different businesses there. Very entrepreneurial from a young age. Doing my own stuff in the summer, like lawn and stuff like that. Like just small businesses, but you could tell that I was very entrepreneurial at a young age, and I just loved what I was doing. Right, so for me, it wasn't any detour to do what I was doing, and working, well, going back, to my summers. So I was playing hockey in the winters, and of course, like doing a lot of off ice training in the summers. But I was still working for the family business at the time, which was a distribution company.
Yeah.
And I would just ask a ton of questions, right? And I was really at the bottom of the ladder, just trying to figure things out and learn from being there, from anything around, accounting to business development to product training to stuff like that. So just had a strong interest for the company, and but I always wanted to do my own thing, and real estate was kind of always there. So I would just walk neighborhoods and look at different buildings, like nothing fancy, like duplex and triplex and
Hmm.
um, in some cases like very whole building, but just trying to understand like the math behind it, right? Like so doing the back of the napkin math, and
Right.
I really loved it, and I became pretty good at it because I did like hundreds and hundreds of different properties just to try to understand like what cash flow meant and how you get there, right? So after you paid your expenses and your mortgage
Yep.
and you have to keep a reserve fund, and I started reading a lot of different books on it.
Okay.
So even like playing junior in the bus or anywhere, I would read a lot. I would watch videos, and when I came to University of Moncton, even at that period of my life, I was always looking for stuff, and I started buying stuff. So with one of my uh, student friend, I guess we borrowed off our first line of credit there, like our student line of credit, to buy a rental cottage, and we bought one, and then another one, and then used that as leverage to buy the third one,
Yep.
and that's how it all started. So really, we felt that what, it's interesting. Like we can use those line of credit and not pay the principal down until our bachelor degrees over. So we
Yep.
have a few years in front of us to just capitalize on those properties and create a little cash flow. So nothing fancy, but I really believe you grow from these steps. Always being one step at a time, and that's a
Mhm.
great example for, I guess, for me there, just a learning process through it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you started early because if you had the discipline in junior on those long road trips, especially living in Val-d'Or, you had a lot of mileage on bus trips, right?
You bet. Yeah.
To sit there and actually read. First of all, I can't read in a vehicle; I feel sick. That's the first thing. But second of all, I mean, you're a teenage kid playing major junior hockey. Tons of distractions, tons of reasons not to sit there and read your book. So I mean, obviously, you had a real passion for it at a young age, and you must have been really disciplined, at that age to be doing that extra learning outside of like what you had to do in terms of high school or CEGEP or whatever you were doing, right?
Yeah, well, I took school very seriously when I was playing in the queue. I mean, of course, I was a teenager at that time, and like, but I think I still did pretty good for considering the environment and everything. But
Yeah.
I was doing my thing, and I always liked to learn, and I was just curious about a lot of stuff. So I took that time, in the bus or
Hmm.
flying, the traveling time to just learn and go through my courses. And really, that's what really opens the opportunity for me to come to New Brunswick and to come to the University of Moncton,
Yeah.
right? Because I had the work ethic from those early days in the queue at the Cégep of Val-d'Or to just learn how to learn kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
And so it really helped me in my path for sure.
Right. So then you come to Moncton for school and hockey, and that's where you met your wife. Was that university?
Nope, nope.
Or
Nope. We're actually high school sweetheart there. So
oh,
so she's
okay,
from Sherbrooke, and
okay,
we lived a distance for quite a long time. And finally, when I played university here, she followed me, and we just
nice.
fell in love with the city. Made a lot of good friends. I met with my business partners, my current business partners here,
Yeah.
and it just made it tough for us to go back. Right, like Moncton really became home. I should say Dieppe because we stayed in Dieppe, and we've been welcomed greatly by people here. So yeah, she followed me, and she's in nursing, so it was pretty easy for her to find work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Bilingual and yeah, of course, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. So you started with the cottages on the lines of credit, and then when did that turn into what like long term residential rentals?
Yep. Um, Well, we did that for a little while, and was always looking to do something bigger. But of course, out of university, was starting my first real job, if you will. So I was essentially doing my MBA at University of Moncton, starting the real estate company and working in the pharmaceutical industry for about 2 years at AstraZeneca, where I learned a lot about the corporate stuff,
Okay.
which was really interesting for me. And I honestly never thought I'd be transitioning so quickly from that to the real estate. I always thought, this is a great job, this is a great career, this is a great company. There's a lot of opportunity ahead of me, right? Like the head office was in Toronto. I had a great career path ahead of me at that company, and the people there were great for me.
Yep.
But on the side, I had the real estate, and it ends up, well, essentially, I end up selling all the older stuff and meeting with my partners here, which have been really good to me to get started, right? So they were seeing maybe the potential in me, or just
Hmm.
we kind of shared that same passion. And it was at a time where multi-residential was really hot, and it was coming, the demand was there. So through Nash, my business partner, who I met when I actually arrived in the app, and we became really close. He kind of took me under his wing there. I met my other partner, Harold, from Halifax, and we decided, well, if we're going to do one project, might as well start a company and see where it takes us.
Hmm.
And from there, when we officially started the company, which is only 4 years ago, time flies, but
Yeah.
it's not that far. Um, when we started the company, we really thought, okay, well, we need to build a platform. We need to build this and that. And I was still in the pharmaceutical when we started it, and we were about to hire somebody, and the guys were like, "Why would we hire somebody? Like,
We have
like that
someone.
person should be you, right? Like that
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
should be you." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yes, maybe, right?" So that was kind of a funny moment, because for me, I always had that dream, but I never really thought it'd be that quickly. And then from there, the last 4 years been an amazing journey with these two guys, and other partners as well, and different relationships we created over time. But it just really took off from there. And every day is a challenge, but every day is a good challenge. Like there's
Yep.
lots of opportunities, and we just grew the platform from the investment company to the construction management company to the property management company. We're just trying to see how we can keep growing, organically, and build a sustainable portfolio of really nice multi-residential assets.
Yeah. Yeah, well, your buildings are stunning. Like I love the blacks, the browns,
Thank
and
you.
they have a look. Like when you drive, obviously I met you, and so now I see your sign. I'm more aware of it when I drive by it or whatever. But even just your buildings, I can identify. I'm like, I bet you that's a Quest building. And as I get up closer with my aging eyes, I look and I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that's the sign. That's one of his buildings. Um, so these partners, like, were they running other businesses, or were they just in the real estate game already, or what? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so well, Nash is a an oral surgeon there, so he's running a pretty big dental company
Okay.
that he's built over the years. And Harold was in the real estate industry, and they were both involved in the first project called Promenade Neuf on Acadie Avenue in Dieppe there, with a third partner who unfortunately passed. And I think on their side, that's really what kind of triggered, like, okay, well, Thierry's there, and we're,
Mm-hmm.
we're we're doing some project together, but this should be all one company. But yeah, they were both very successful in their own career, with their own businesses. There, Harold has an extensive background in property management and real estate development. And when we joined forces, what's nice about it is that we're all very, we're complementing each other. So my strength and my interest was really towards financing and putting deals together and
Right.
acquiring these lands and negotiating, where Harold is a lot more focused on anything that's property management and the operational side of the company. So we
Okay.
have different personalities, and Nash, is very great person, well respected in town, very strong business acumen, very smart. So we all brought something to the table there, and since then we've been very supportive of each other, and the relationship really evolved, and I'm very fortunate to have them around.
So when you guys first got together, did you illustrate one another's roles? Like, was that
Um,
talked about up front before you formed the actual partnership, or did it just kind of go without saying?
yes and no. Like I'm still fairly young, and I was, even younger at that age. So I still have a lot to learn from them, and so I think it was more of a, we have a vision. I think we're all passionate about what we're doing, and we see a lot of potential,
Yep.
right in that business. And we just jumped right in and kind of figured it out from there. I would say that naturally we kind of, over time, after I would say probably a year and a half, it became very clear that okay, like we have different strengths. But yeah, like early on, it was more of a, we have a common vision.
Mm,
We think we can do something. Let's just see where it brings us. And we went from, one project under construction to buying another strategic piece of land to, okay, like, we like what we're doing. We think, we have the connection to
yep.
work with the municipalities, with different consultants, and we learned a lot through the process as well, because none of us really had done like such large projects before, right? So we all had the interest, and we all were reading a lot on it,
Hmm.
and talking to people in the industry, but like specific development project like we do now, none of us had like specific experience on that before. So
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's super relatable. Like my partner with Cabina, the Nova Scotia resort, him and I came together based on the same thing, the vision. And then, we spent a lot of time getting to know each other. It's been 2 years in the making of that project. And we spent a lot of time, we were very careful and spent a lot of time getting to know each other. But I do find that a lot of the decisions are like discussed, where I feel over the long term we'll kind of identify, okay, you kind of handle this stuff, I'll handle this stuff, and so on and so forth. But it was very much like we have one vision, we're passionate about the same idea. Let's just get it done. If I can do this, I have some spare time, you have some spare time, or I have this resource, you have that resource, and just kind of get it done. But I really like, because my first business, Country Liberty, I mean, I had a partner in the very, very early days, but once it became a business, it was just me running it. And I enjoy having a partner, especially like an older, more experienced partner that's kind of been there, done that in life, like has done
yeah,
different things. And I love learning that way. Like that's probably my favorite takeaway, honestly, thus far with this project, is just kind of watching, how they operate and how they think and how they problem solve, things
yeah.
like that. I really enjoy that. So as a young guy coming out of school, I mean, you must have got a lot of that too, right? From these partners.
Absolutely, and I've been exposed to so many things early on in my career, which I value a lot, right? Like just to be able to learn from these guys, and just to be exposed to such great projects really helps me, right? So still have a lot to learn, but when I look back, it's certainly been a great journey so far, and there's even more challenge ahead of us, but you said it well. I think when that's the benefit of being in partnership, right? Like you can bounce ideas, and you can strategize together, and it's just a great environment to be in. And of course, like if everybody brings something a bit different to the table, it certainly helps.
Right. So how many buildings do you guys have now under Quest? How many apartment buildings?
Right now, we have about 600 units under management,
Okay.
over 11 buildings,
Okay.
I think. So, anywhere ranging from about 36 unit to the largest is 102 units. And yeah, like that's kind of where we're at right now. Over the last couple of years, we also bought a lot of land, strategic land. So we're doing our first subdivision this year,
Okay.
which has just started 2 weeks ago in Dieppe. So there's lots of potential there as well. So overall, we do have land as well in Dartmouth, Halifax. So roughly, we have about 3,000 unit in developable land in the pipeline,
Wow.
and that's a lot. So right
Yeah.
now, our focus is really on executing on those.
Yep.
We're making strategic partnership. We do have a few external investors as well that are uh, very very stable individuals financially,
Yeah.
emotionally, like just great partners to have around.
Yeah.
And that's what it is when you grow a business. You need some more resources, whether they're capital, whether they're human.
Yeah.
So we are hiring few more people. Our team is pretty good now. Like we in the development company, we're about 15 employees.
Okay.
All have their own responsibilities, and we're very fortunate to work with a great group.
Yeah, that's awesome. I knew that you guys were aggressively building because obviously I follow you on social media and I see all the postings, but I'd never know exactly which building is what or how far along each development is. And what people don't understand about construction projects is it takes a lot of freaking time. A lot of from planning, from first of all, like you said, acquiring the raw land to planning to building to paying for it to filling it
Yep.
full of tenants, things like that. It's a long process. So you guys are planning like what? How far ahead? Like you must be planning
Well,
years ahead with this.
yeah, like typical projects nowadays can take up to, 3 to 5 years from, acquiring a piece of land or like looking at a strategic piece of land up to starting the construction and then, to build a building, right? So it just takes so much time that you have to plan ahead. And especially in those market conditions now, like the environment has changed, right? The last 12 to 18 months, interest rates
Yep.
are way tighter now, and it's a lot more difficult to get these projects off the ground. Whether it takes more equity, whether the math doesn't work as good,
Mm.
or you have to look at it differently. So, anyways, like things are good, but it just takes more time, right? So you need to be more sophisticated now. You need to structure your things properly, and we're very risk adverse, right? Like we don't like to take risk, or we don't like to take much risk. So
Mm.
our mentality has always been to go out and deal with very stable investors, stable lenders. Make sure that our financial structure is all in place before we actually start a project. To make sure we're not faced with unexpected challenges down the road, which I think really help the company, right? So the development might be a little slower given the environment we're in, but
Yep.
everything that we have is stable, and of course our management team's doing a great job. And one of the things we always put a lot of emphasis on was the resident experience. Like we want people that are living in our building to feel home,
Yep.
to feel like they're part of a larger communities, and that's something we don't want to forget. That's something we're very proud of, and we're getting a lot of good feedback, and we want to keep that, which is always a challenge when you're growing, right? Because the level of service you're providing when your couple of staff for one building is a lot easier to achieve than what it is when there's plenty of buildings and there's lots of moving parts.
Right.
But I think our team's doing a great job at that so far, and that's something we keep in mind for going forward.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for anyone listening, I've been in your building. You gave me a tour there that time, and it's beautiful. So if you're looking for a place to live in the Greater Moncton area, look up Quest. You guys do a really great job. From the outside looking
Thank
in,
you.
I don't know that much about the business, but I've lived a lot of different places, and it seems like a really nice place to live. You mentioned the interest rate, and I wanted to ask you that because I think the last time we spoke or the last time we met up was a few years ago, and as we know, during COVID, we had the big real estate boom where everyone's buying real estate and paying all these crazy prices and outbidding each other with this crazy, like, record breaking low interest rate and things like that. And now we're kind of seeing the other side of it. So what has changed within your business model with that extreme change from the low COVID interest rate to the current interest rate now?
Yep. Well, it changed a lot of stuff. Like the biggest impact was really on the new development, right? Like it slowed down the new development pipeline that we have, and it's a lot harder to carry those pieces of land, right? So oftentimes, like when you're going to acquire a piece of land, you're going to look at, okay, well, can I start building it within 12 months, 24 months?
Right.
So there's certainly an impact there. Uh, but really, we never been a strong bidder in those price wars there, where there's a property and there's a ton of people on it. Is we have a long-term vision, so we always been trying to work with the local community and try to be fair to landowners who maybe weren't real estate people, right? So a lot of people retired and then they maybe inherited from a piece of land, or maybe they had a strategic piece of land that they don't know what it's worth, they don't know what to do with it. So
Right.
we've worked a lot ourselves directly with the community, to strategically purchase and make sure that those people were treated fairly, and that we were also finding what we needed there. So I think that's been part of our success locally here. For development, we always have a long-term vision. Our vision has always been, 10 to 15 years, right? So we don't sell anything that we have, for the most part. Like, we want to build very high quality assets and keep them for a long period of time. So yes, there's a short-term impact, but when you underwrite a deal over a period of 10 years, like the math still works, right? And these are still very solid investment. At this stage, we're more focused on risk mitigation and trying to see, like, how do we preserve what we have, and the structure that we have, and make sure that everything's stable across the portfolio, rather than trying to just grow and grow and grow.
Right.
Even though everybody's looking for growth, so our intent was always to have 3 to 5 projects a year. Right now we're always about 2 or 3 projects at the same time. But if it takes a bit more time to get to 5, like that's fine, right? Like, we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
But risk mitigation is very important right now, and that's what we've been focusing on. Is if we're going to take on a project, we need to make sure that the everything's in place. So financing's in place, the equity structure is in place, the teams in place to execute on it, and we have the bandwidth and the capacity to do it.
Right. So what would you say your bottleneck is? Would you say it's the bandwidth? Would you say it's the capital? Would you, like, when you say it, when you buy a piece of raw land, it might take 2 years before you can drive a nail on that property. Like, is it the tradespeople? Like, what is the bottleneck that keeps you from getting right into the construction phase after buying?
Yeah, well, there's few challenges. I think it's a combination of different things, right? Like, because the more capital you have, like, you could always have more capital to do more, right? So it's certainly one, right? Like, right now with the interest rates that are higher, it requires more capital. Well, it's definitely a challenge for anybody, but is that the only thing? No. So I think capital is certainly a challenge as we grow. So rather than having capital invested in 5 projects, maybe we have to consolidate everything into 1 or 2 or 3, or maybe we have to bring on investors in certain projects, right, to compensate for that equity that went to 1 or 2 rather than 3.
Yeah.
So the capital structure is very important. You mentioned it, the interest rate. Like, of course, if they would come down a little bit, it would certainly help. But on the flip side, I don't think interest rates have been like the major challenge. I think the major challenge has been the uncertainty around rates, right? Which is very different, right? So we do a lot of CMHC financing, and our ceiling rate on those financings around 4%, or it's been a lot around 4% the last few months. So it's really the uncertainty on will it keep going up, right? Or when is it going to come down? Or there's just a lot of uncertainty around those. I think
Right.
once we all settle on, okay, well, now it's stable and they're around 4, like, we'll make it work, right?
Yeah.
And that's been our vision. Like, if you underwrite over a 5-year period, a 10-year period, and you can assume that these rates are going to be around 4%, it still works, right? So I would say the uncertainty has been a big challenge. And then construction cost, right? And the uncertainty around labor, around trades. Fortunately, we've built great relationships with trades over the last couple of years, and we feel that we're very very well taken care of from most of those trades, which is great. That relationship is great, but costs keep increasing, right? And therefore, like, we have to build our model around achieving more rents, which is also a challenge in the market because
Yeah.
it's putting more pressure on everyone, and there's so much people can pay on a monthly basis. But the thing is, I think there's a misperception in the market, right? Like some people are talking about developers, like they're always making a lot of money on these projects, and the thing is, with those construction costs increasing over time, we had to keep increasing the rent, but at some point those margins aren't, those margins are getting tighter,
Yep.
even though the rents are going higher. So it's certainly a concern, and we've been addressing that by working with CMHC on a lot of these financing that provides affordable housing units in those projects. So we're proud to say that that across the portfolio we have about 127 units that are in some ways affordable. Affordability means different things to different people, but
Yeah.
I think that's a start for us, and that's pretty much a subject we're talking about on a daily or weekly basis. It's like, how do we bring units that are good for the market, and that are going to help the communities as well.
Right. Yeah, because it really seems to be a housing crisis. Like I know just in the last few years, like for a first time home buyer, it's kind of a scary time. Like you got to spend, even in our little town, you got to spend almost twice as much on a new starter home, like a bungalow, for example, than you did maybe 6 years ago, you know?
Yep.
And it's hard for those first time buyers to get in. And with a higher interest rate, um, like what would you recommend for those people? Like if you rolled the time back and you're 20 years old, and I'm not talking about like from a business perspective, just from like a living perspective, like what would you be doing in today's current state of environment if you're looking to buy your first home?
Yeah. Well, I think for people that are fresh out of school, or it's always been a good idea to to acquire a duplex, or a property where you can maybe rent a room, or maybe rent a unit, or uh, maybe share some space, and get some revenue from it. But even then, right? Like I'm reading a lot on that topic, and even then, people are saying, well, how do you actually buy that duplex to get started with, right?
Yeah.
So with those cost increase, it's even harder to do that.
Yeah.
But I think by choice, there's a lot of our generation, or the younger generation, that do not aspire to own a home anymore. I think and we see it across our properties. There's a lot more business professional that by choice, they're going to pick our properties where they might have a gym in the building. They might have like an hospitality suite where
Yeah.
they can gather with friends and family, and or maybe work from there. The convenience of having an underground parking and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think the market is shifting, and I think our generation, or the younger generation, wants more flexibility, but
Mhm.
also people that are in the 50 to 60 years old bracket too, right? Like people seem to transition a lot earlier than they used to be. So rather than waiting until they're fully retired,
Yeah.
they might just sell their house and move in early to get the convenience of those amenities, and just get more flexibility to travel, and to do other stuff. Um, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few years. But of course, like buying, your first home is definitely a challenge.
Mhm.
But will there be as many people who are looking for that or not? I think that's a good question to ask ourselves. But it's definitely being tighter for those new homeowners.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's definitely a pressure, at least like in my small town. I was renting because I was a little bit unconventional. I moved away. I went to school. I jumped around houses, apartments, whatever, but always renting. And then there was a pressure. I only bought my first home in my late 20s, but a lot of my friends and stuff that just went to trade school or started working right out of high school, they bought their first house, years earlier than I did. And there was always that pressure of like, well, gee, Sawyer, you're throwing your money away because you're renting. But what I always would combat that argument, and I still do to this point, not that I regret buying my place because I love it for emotional reasons. I enjoy owning that house, but mathematically, I don't know if it makes that much sense, economically. But I would always say, that flexibility, because I'm an ambitious person. This before Country Liberty kind of took off. I wanted to keep myself free. If I got a job opportunity wherever, I wanted to get on a flight and go. I didn't want a mortgage to tell me I couldn't, right? So to me, that's what was so important to me, was having that flexibility. And I think that if I didn't have that emotional attachment to the place, like my mother is my neighbor, for example, it's a, it's close to where I grew up. It's on the water. Like for all those reasons, that's why I bought my place. But if I were to do it over again and, maybe buy somewhere random, I like that flexibility of being able to just kind of go. And I think that in the younger generation, people like the ability to get up and go or travel, or at least the perception of that. I'm free to go. I'm not restrained. And I think that is maybe a big reason why people prefer renting. And you mentioned the amenities, the gym and all that stuff. I mean, you'd have to build a palace to have all those amenities on your property, right?
Yep.
If you owned it. So it's
Oh,
nice. Like,
absolutely.
how important are those amenities, like in your business model and retaining your renters and attracting new renters? How important are those amenities to your building success?
They're becoming more and more important, right? Like I said earlier, I think there's lots of people that are choosing those type of properties for the lifestyle, and so it's becoming really important, especially around here. Underground parking, as an example, with the crazy winters we get,
Yep.
and the snow and the ice and everything. That's definitely something people are asking more and more. But of course, there's a price point that can become an issue, right? So our business strategy is to be in all segments of the market. So, we'd be honing properties that are 3-story wood frame, no elevator, no gym, no hospitality room. It's a straight up, you get in and you're in your unit.
Yep.
But from a price point perspective, like these buildings are really nice, modern finishes, and they get the job done, right? All the way up to very high-end properties where you have like pet wash station, like fitness room, a conference room, all of that, so you can work from your building. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's all these crazy stuff that you can do within the building, but of course it comes at a price, right? So, um, but if you look at it from another way, though, what's nice about those buildings that has lots of amenities is that if you're not paying for a gym membership, and you haven't, if you have it within your building, then there's few things like that become really convenient, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
can wake up in the morning and just go straight to the gym before you
Yep.
get a shower and stuff like
Yep.
that, which also give you some of your time back, right? So of course, there's a financial aspect to it,
Yep.
but there's a convenience aspect to
Yep.
all these amenities, which are really in high demand right now.
Yeah, the gym sets are a great example, because not only are you going to save, $50 to $100 a month, depending on your gym membership, you're going to save that time, like you said. And for me, um, if I could work out, if I could just walk to where I need to work out and have all the equipment and then just walk back to my apartment and shower, like that would be ideal for me. Instead of, I drive about almost a half an hour in the morning to get to the gym, right?
Yep.
So, and during COVID, you couldn't even shower at the gym. So then I'd have to drive home to shower, because I couldn't work sweaty. I just can't. That would bother me too much. So then all of a sudden, all that time's wrapped up, right? But if that gym is in your building, it's just a few elevator buttons away. It's pretty convenient for you.
Yeah, no, I think there's a clientele for each type of buildings, and we're trying to be in all of them, to
Yeah.
be diversified, but also to for us, as we grow our platform, somebody calls us and they work with a certain budget, they work with some very specific criteria
Okay.
that they would like to have in their building. We can offer different options, which at first we couldn't really do it. Like if you were calling us
Right.
to rent that building and that unit was not in your price range, or we couldn't provide you with the amenities you were looking for, then this was a lost customer. Now we have lots of leads. We have a solid brand in the market. People recognize the logo, the name, the
Mm-hmm.
reputation, and when they call us, it's really great because we can offer them different type of product based on what they actually need. So we don't need to push something that they don't need. We can actually kind of tailor the approach to make sure that their next move is where they need to be at.
So is that how you're making your market analysis, like decisions? Is you're collecting this feedback and saying, okay, gee, seems like a lot of people are looking for a stick frame 3-story, 16 unit apartment building, or like, how do you decide what building to build next?
It's a great question. Market data is so important, and it's something that's really, really hard to get. Whether you're looking at StatsCan or the CMHC data, the report that they're pushing to the market every year. There's some data there, but it's never 100% accurate, right? And whenever these guys gather a lot of data, it takes some time to put it together and to launch the report. And usually we're looking ahead, not backwards, right? So
Right.
uh, so I think it's a component to it. I think there's a lot of great appraisers, valuators that are aware of the market around that we work with on a weekly basis. But our internal team's doing a lot of that. So we're trying to stay as close as possible from the ground, from the actual market, talking with tenants, trying to understand what they need, where the trends are going. We're looking at the absorption of our different products or different buildings and trying to identify which units layouts are working the best, what size of units are preferred, what type of
Yep.
building, what type of amenities are most in demand. I don't think there's any perfect science to it. I think, for us to be that close from our end user or residents is key to getting that feedback. And of course, being open-minded, right? Like we need to have our eyes open. And I travel a lot for work, and I'm trying to see what other people's are doing too, right?
Yep.
Because Halifax tend to be a couple of years ahead of us. Well, if they're doing something different, then it's coming here. I don't know if it's going to be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, or next year if the
Yep.
market keeps going like it is now. But if we see people doing great things elsewhere, like we're going to try to get inspired by it and at least consider it, right? So being open minded is really, really key.
Do you have contacts within the market within other markets, but within the same industry that you can lean on and have these conversations with, or is it a pretty closed off competitive industry?
Um, I would say a bit of both. We do have contact, and we're bouncing ideas with some other folks. I think there's always a little a little reserve about what you're sharing and not.
Right.
But I think overall people are trying to like as a whole industry right now. There's a housing crisis. There's a housing crisis, and
Yeah.
we need to address it. So it's not like there's not room for a lot of people to build housing. So I think the more we share those best practices,
Yeah.
the better it is for the community in general. So, and we're trying to be open ourselves, right? Like we're trying to share as much as we can with other folks if there's anything we can do to help the industry in general.
So what do you think? You mentioned the housing crisis. Like, what do you think is the greatest contributor to that? Do you think it's inflation? Do you think it's the economy? The large sums of immigration. Like, what do you think is contributing the most to that housing crisis?
I mean, immigration is definitely on top of the list, right? Like there's a lot of people that are coming in, and then there's a lot of people that are traveling from one province to another. Like we see, let's say specifically in New Brunswick, we see a lot of people coming from Ontario, right? And I think COVID really accelerated that move where people, realize that Atlantic Canada is a great place to live.
Yep.
Cost of living, yes, is going up, but it's still way below, what you would find in
Yep.
in bigger cities. So I think we're on the map now, and I think that's a great news for our market, but it comes with challenges, right? And it certainly doesn't help the local people who are struggling with, finding a place to live. So,
Mhm.
in a way, it's good. In another way, we have to find solutions for that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with we're on the map because we've seen it, like you said, Ontario. There's a lot of Ontario money spent on our river. We have a beautiful river here, the Rishabukto, and it was a secret for a long, long time. So essentially just locals had access to it, right? Which was fantastic. And then it was discovered, which is fine. I'm all for progress. I'm happy to see that. It's good for the local economy, for some new money to come in and people to build nice buildings. Everyone's getting work out of this. Everyone's getting runoff. I think it's all fantastic. But the prices certainly went up a lot. And what I always kind of said to people trying to remain positive and optimistic is like, these should have been the prices for a long time. Like we got away with discounted prices. We got used to it. It became normalized. So we're just like, well, yeah, this is the price. This should always be the price, But in my opinion, I think that people just found out about how valuable and how nice of a life you can have or cottage life or whatever it is in this area, and prices just kind of normalized to where it probably should have been for a long time, you know?
Yeah, so it's catching up, right? And that's the thing, and that's why, like, we keep really believing in our market because we still feel that we're underpriced, right? Compared to other cities. Like, I don't feel like living in Moncton is not as good as living in some of these bigger cities, right? So
Yep.
I don't think we'll ever catch up, right? Because everybody keeps going up, and those prices keep increasing. But I think we're way too low from where we should be, and I think that gap is going to get closer and closer
Yep.
in the next couple of years there. But it's nice to be living here, and people are realizing that you're close from the beach. There's lots of outdoor that you can do.
Yep.
Cost of living is lower. The community is great.
Yep.
It's a safe community, right? Like, this is becoming a concern in some of the larger cities. So
Yep.
there's a lot of benefit to be living around here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So with your, like, because you mentioned diversity a few times, is that part of like your risk mitigation? It's like, we're gonna, instead of just building 10 of the exact same building, we're gonna kind of spread it out so we have a wider customer base, different customer base. Is that part of the like plan to diversify, would you say? Because you mentioned you're doing a subdivision.
Totally.
That's completely different than the last time I spoke to you. So is that all part of that plan?
Yep. Yeah, it is. And in fact, some of these smaller buildings just are less riskier, right? Like, they take less time to build, so you can execute quickly, you can fill them quickly, and it also respond to demand, a very strong demand that we see in the market, right? So I think it's good to be in all segments of the market because we can tap into different clientele. But from our perspective, it's always good to have buildings that we're going to complete within 10 to 12 months, where the other one's going to take 24, and then they
Right.
overlap. And it's just good across the company, whether it's the construction resources that we have through the construction company, whether it's the ops team, right? So they can go gradually and start filling those properties and really stabilizing them. And financially, it just makes a lot of sense, right? Because then we can we can ensure that if the market slows down on the more high end stuff,
Yep.
we have other type of products, and we can also get upscale for some of these residents as they grow within their life cycle. If at some point they're a bit more stable financially, and they would want to be in the mid-market building where there's a little bit more amenities, we can offer that. So we
Right.
feel that it's a great approach, and that it really responds to a need that we see in the market.
So for those people that are on the wrong side of this housing crisis, that are, what is the solution for them? Is it just for a developing group like yourselves to build like lower end housing? Is that kind of the idea? Or like, what is, like, with your experience, in your opinion, like, what is the solution for that?
Yeah, I don't think there's one specific solution. I think the government has some responsibilities and power to help with that.
Yeah.
But I think it's all level of governments, right? Like, whether you're talking municipality, the province, and the federal government, at
Yeah.
all level, they need to contribute, and not necessarily to contribute in money or cash equivalent, but also to help facilitate those development, right, and those approvals,
Yeah.
so that we can build faster. And I think there's a lot of great initiatives that are out there
Good.
already. It's just not enough, right? And the other thing is, for ourselves, like, I think we need to be able to go quicker across the board, right? And that's one misconception where there's a lot of people not seeing necessarily the benefit of those new buildings, like the higher end buildings and stuff. But the more inventory you have on the market, the prices at some point are going to stabilize, right?
Right.
So of course, I think we can't build high-end buildings only. I think we have to be in all segments, but
Yep.
it's really, really hard for developers like us in today's market uh, to build like very cheap apartment because the cost is so high. Even though you're building like a straight up wood frame,
Yep.
zero amenities building, the cost is so high already that we need some sort of help. And I think that the quicker it gets to go through the cycle, the cheaper you can build it for. Therefore, you can charge less
Right.
at the end. And on top of that, if you have some incentive from different level of government, it can certainly help. But at the end of the day, it's a question of supply. The more supply you get on the market, the more the prices are going to stabilize. So I think anything that can help accelerate development and putting more supply in the market
Yeah.
is going to help with those who are struggling, even finding places right now, or finding places that are somewhat affordable, right, or at a fair price.
Yeah. And do you predict within your, let's say, 5 to 10 year model that there will be an oversupply of inventory in the Greater Moncton area, or do you just forecast that there's going to be a demand for housing for the long term?
It's a great question. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say. I think everybody would want to know or to see.
Yeah, of course.
Uh, I think we're a long ways from being oversupplied.
Okay.
I think there is definitely more attention that needs to be put on strategic type of buildings where you're not overbuilding, right? Entry level to mid market buildings are great right now. So I think there could be oversupply of like high end buildings, right? That are too expensive
Right.
for the general community. But I think as long as you build the right product, there's going to be a need for at least the next 5 to 10 years. What's hard to predict is we don't know, right? The immigration here, we don't know how many people are gonna come from other provinces here.
Yeah.
But if it keeps going the way it is now, I think we're long ways from being oversupplied.
Okay. Okay. I know you do have a meeting here coming up here in the next few minutes. I just want to ask you two quick questions. The first question
Yep.
for an aspiring real estate investor, someone that's getting started in today's climate, someone that wants to, when they're your age, be you. What would you advise that person?
Well, of course, like being curious, right, about the topic, about the industry, about how to make things works, and getting surrounded by the right people, right? I think that's really important. Whether they're mentors, partners, friends, family members, just the general community. I think people, especially in Atlantic Canada, people are very generous of their time and their knowledge, and
Yeah.
they value a lot the sense of community. So I think I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by great people, and but also I've been very very curious to learn more about it and to learn more about
Yeah.
these people, right?
Okay. Awesome. I'll add to that and say, because a lot of people ask me, how do I start a business? What I liked about your story was you grinded from your teenage years. You were educating yourself outside of just what the norm was, high school, CGEP, whatever. And you were grinding and working to a point that you were a valuable asset to partners when they met you, versus knocking on a door and saying, hey, massive successful investors, I want to start a business with you. Well, why? Oh, because I want to. I feel like you really put in the work first, and then by the time the opportunity was presented, you were ready, right? And I think that a lot of people that I talk to that want to start businesses need to know that often the work comes first and then the opportunities come after. It's not the
Absolutely.
reverse, right?
I totally agree. Like people want to do business with you if you're doing well already, right? So,
Yep.
and whatever that means, I think there's different ways to, to do well. It doesn't need to be financially. It can be financially, but it can be, something
Yep.
sometimes just a work ethic that you're willing to put in to get things
Absolutely.
done. So there's a great combination of different soft skills that comes into mix, right?
Yep. No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And the last question before I let you go is, where can everybody find you? What's your website? What's your social media handles, things like that?
Yep. Well, you can find everything on questproperties.ca. Whether it's information about our different properties, about our company, and my personal social media, Thierry Comtois, or the company social media, Quest Properties and Quest Capital on Facebook and Instagram. So pretty easy to find us from the website.
Cool. Awesome, man. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. And we'll have to do this again soon because I do have a lot more questions for you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot, man.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
The Sawyer Hannay Show.